Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us on what is a very timely Motormouth session. We couldn't have designed this to be better timing if we'd even tried. I'm just going to have a little chat with the people that are joining us, but I'm watching the numbers tick up from this one. I'm not surprised that it's a popular session. I'm Carly Brookfield. I'm Chief Executive at Driving Instructors Association. Sorry, it's been a long day today. I'm joined by another equally loquacious motormouth, Graham Hooper from Driving Instructors Association, and also Terry Cook, Chris Benstead, and Emma Cottington, who I will allow themselves to give themselves their own introduction because they'll do it so much better than me in a moment. But again, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. I know you're all very, very busy people and in a very pressured time. And today's announcement is being touted as ministers as something that's going to help you be less pressured and your pupils. But do we believe it is going to be one of the questions on our lips tonight. So without much further ado, we're going to be running for about an hour, which is our normal session tonight. May go slightly over if people want to hang around and have a little bit more conversation about it. But first of all, let's let Graham, Chris, Terry, and Emma introduce themselves. So I'm going to go to Terry first, just because you're in my line of sight.
Yeah, I'm Terry, host and founder of the Instructor Podcast and the membership alongside it. I'm a committee member on the ADR&JC, and I get the privilege of working with some amazing road safety people, the likes of Project Edward.
Emma, over to you.
Hi, I'm Emma Cottington, based up in the Northwest. I've been an ADI since 2010, and after loads and loads of training, became a trainer myself 2016, and been consistently training PDIs since 2019, and I'm industry author to the Learner Driver Logbook and the Driving Instructor CPD Workbook.
Thanks, Emma. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Benstead. I am a theory specialist, driving instructor trainer, and co-founder of the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective.
And Graham.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Graham Hooper, if you don't know already, Head of Driver Trainer Development at the DIA. And I've only got 2 words to say. Don't panic.
Very good, very good. Okay, so folks, just a little housekeeping for you tonight. I can allow you to chat so we can hear you on the chat tonight. If you want to raise a question or you want to give us your view on today's events or anything to do with driver training at all, you need to stick your hand up and then I can come to you. And when I do come to you, please unmute your mic if you want us to actually hear from you. We're going to kick off with a little bit of chat amongst the panelists to start, and then we will come to participants. Feel free, however, to also type some chat, some comments in the chat function, and we'll pick those up and reflect those. So if you're too shy to speak on camera, we will actually just pick your comment up from the chat box there. If you've got a specific question, stick it in the Q&A. It just makes it easier for us to dance between the 2 boxes there. Just keep the chat for your views and your comments, keep the Q&A for your questions, and I can ask the panel those questions, or we can all collectively attempt to answer those for yourself. So without much further ado, sorry, Graham?
No, it's okay.
You're sticking your hand up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just checking.
Checking.
It was recording. I just wanted to make sure, because we wouldn't be like us to forget.
No, not at all.
As I put my hand up, that bit about don't panic, actually, who's panicking? Because it seemed to me that there's quite a few knee-jerk reactions going on today.
Well, who is panicking? Heidi Alexander and her team, not necessarily the industry, who are kind of same old BS kind of response from the DBSA and the Department for Transport.
And do you think, I suppose the question is this all a knee-jerk reaction because she was being called up in front of the minister, for example, and she had to come up with something. So let's sack Love Day and come up with some solutions from some random, what was it? Another one of them things they send out that no one answers.
Consultation.
Oh, one of them things, yeah. Yeah, one of them things. Yes, I don't know.
Just a quick one here. You should have, all people who are attending tonight's webinar, the ability to use emojis in Zoom. There will be in your bottom browser, or if your browser is at the top there. So can I just ask people just to, first of all, by use of the thumbs up emoji, let me know that they can hear me and they can see us. Perfect. Thanks, folks. And now I'm a bit confused with Zoom actually, because I dance between Zoom and Teams all the time. If there is a thumbs down emoji, I'm not telling you to use that one, but if you pick the emoji now when I ask this question, pick the emoji that you think describes how you feel about the situation. Given the announcements today, if you haven't caught up to all the news today, because a lot of you are now actually teaching pupils, so you might have all the bits and pieces to know what's going on. So today, Heidi Alexander, after going to the Transport Select Committee this morning, has announced that she's going to make a raft of measures, including drafting in the military to do examining, closing the booking system to everybody but to the pupil themselves. Sorry, people, I've been doing interviews this afternoon, so I've lost the thread. What were the other bits and pieces they were doing? My mind's gone.
With regard to what, I don't think they know really, do they? They just put together. I'll dig out the email. Carry on.
Yeah. So anyway, so just give me your thoughts via the emoji on right. So we've got a combination of laughing faces and kind of shocked faces. And Chris just has to do something to be different with his 99 balloons.
They're just
So so some people are using the celebration emoji about the announcement today. Again, getting a lot more laughter emojis than anything else. So what do people think about the communication of the announcement? We'll go into the actual announcement itself. What do people think about the communication of the announcement?
I think the fact that they had to send out an amendment, to clarify very rapidly afterwards, potentially shows it was a bit of a hurried thing going out. That there's a bit of disarray going on, and it wasn't as clear. And I know that none of us got to see anything in advance on this one to point out some of the communication problems that sometimes we can get in the way of by saying, hang on, if we don't understand it, no one else is going to. So I think the fact that that came out is telling, and yeah, it's interesting that you've got to be seen to be acting sometimes, haven't you? It doesn't mean that actually you're just treading water. You're not doing anything that's going to have viable outcomes. It sounds good, doesn't mean it is good.
Okay, so someone said, can you clarify? ADIs will no longer be able to book tests on OBS. Keeps moving too quick. Let me get it back again. Will no longer be able to book tests on OBS for their students by summer 2026. This is correct. It says in the coming months, DVSA will change the booking service to allow only learner car drivers to book and manage their tests. So reading that's us out of it. Introduce a limit on the number of times a learner car driver can move or swap a test to twice. And then and also limit the area. No idea how big the area is going to be. They can move a test to once booked, and then finally make use of Ministry of Defence driving examiners for up to 12 months to help tackle driving test wait times. But because this is got to be, a lot of this may be in legislation, the goalposts still could be moved, dug up and changed the game by the time we get to spring.
You're not saying in a cynical manner, Graham, that this could just all be a PR exercise, and that when all the furore, and the applause dies down for Heidi Alexander stepping up and getting rid of the CEO and bringing in some new measures, we might not actually see any traction on these measures until into next year?
May there be something else political happen between now and April, which becomes far more important than in a lot of people's eyes, our piddling little industry, which is all important to us, but not really. 40,000 ADIs are not greatly important in the grand scheme of things, which is a concern for all of us. So,
being highly cynical, also the timings. So they talk about the first real impact we'll see of these changes and those waiting times going down will now not be probably until summer 2026. But that we're also really looking at these changes only being implemented in a meaningful way by summer 2026. So I'd be flabbergasted if they can get waiting times down to 7 weeks within moments of implementing the changes effectively.
And what changes are there actually that are going to affect waiting list really when we're looking at the net increase of instructors that they've managed to achieve is 40 more instructors, and they've said 400. So they've only managed to get a net increase of 40. The MOD examiners, sorry, I said instructors, didn't I? Examiners, but the examiners from the MOD, they're giving them, is it 35, 36, but they're only doing 1 day a week each. So let's call that the equivalent of 6 or 7 examiners there. That's not all of these tests that are required. We need more availability of tests, full stop. All of this other stuff, it's reducing the pressure, but it's not actually providing what we need for the demand. So, we had a target of December. Next month was going to be 7 weeks.
Yeah.
The figures on that, December 2024, the average waiting list was 21 weeks. It's now 22.8, I believe. So that's gone up. I don't. That's how my maths works. That's the wrong way. So you're right. We're gonna have these extra. Let's say 50. We'll be generous. An extra 50 examiners who I'm doubting are going to be in the key areas where the massive demand is and the biggest waiting lists seem to be. London and the southeast is largely in there. They're not going to be in those areas because that's not where where the military examiners are and everything else. So I don't see the solution. I see noise and comment to get a response.
Well, let's see if we can go to one of the audience members tonight. So, Michael, I'm going to allow you to talk. You need to unmute your mic, which is muted at the moment. Do you want to let us know your opinions on this situation?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, is that Michael?
Hello.
Hi,
Yes,
do
it
you want
is.
to let us know what your thoughts are on this situation?
So at the moment, I'm thinking it's actually a good idea to get driving instructors to not be part of any driving tests. That's my opinion. Many learner drivers that I teach at the some of them are sharing the driving license number with them, and it gets to the point where I am about to check the license summary with them, and then they start sending me pictures of the full license. And then we talk about like, this is your privacy. I don't need to see X of your your name, your address, and so on. And then they're like, oh, my instructor asked me to do this for them, or my instructor tried to get all the copy of my license. And then I'm like, no, it's absolutely fine. I just need your last 8 digits. So I think as soon as driving instructors might not be part of this, then I think the driving test might be a bit, reduced, the waiting time. Some driving instructors, I believe, are, learner drivers. I think one of them mentioned that he's about to really desperately to get a test, and he's willing to pay. And I said to him, look, do you not want any of your sort of, money of you? And if it's a driving test that you're looking for, it will be only like 40 DVSA website that you're looking to. So there's learners out there who are willing to pay X amount of money, and it gets to the point where you're actually thinking, we only need your last 8 digits. We don't need extra amount of money of you. We just need, £62 or £63 to book a driving test. So I think if driving instructors will not be part of this, I think that is going to be our, on learner drivers. So I think it's a good idea, a learner drivers being fully sort of independent, booking the driving test and being part of the, the managing their own driving test.
Yeah, I think there's
Thanks for that, Michael.
double-edged sword to this. There'll be instructors out there who specialise in intensive tests. We've just had a large regional school go under recently because of they couldn't get tests, and it resulted in nearly 40 employed instructors losing their jobs, which was Next Gen in Suffolk. But there's a lot of intensive companies out there that driving instructors actually go to when they're short of work. How that's going to have a big impact on a lot of us within the industry who may choose to do intensives where they've been booking a test, in Scotland and then waiting for a cancellation and then getting it in Ashford in Kent. That's not going to happen. So I don't know if there's any ADIs out there where that repercussion is going to affect them. I mean, they've got a bit of time to change their business model. However, ADIs, we lost B+E recently. That affected a large number of ADIs and their business. Now, those ADIs who've got intensive as their business model, can Graham turn his volume up, please? No, I'm not in charge of the volume. So can somebody else turn my volume up, please, or I'll just speak louder.
Just speak a bit louder, Graham.
Yeah, or maybe it's the volume the other end. Is it only one person who can't hear me?
I think so. Sunil, if you try and turn your volume up further, I know you've probably done that already, and I'm teaching Grandma to suck eggs there, but just try that. Is it only Graham you can't hear? Because that might not be a Zoom platform issue. It might be a local issue. I mean, I've just seen a comment as well in the messaging that I picked up on earlier with one of the broadcast channels I was talking to. The intent might not have been there by DVSA, but unfortunately in the communications this has come across by saying that this blocking out of ADIs in the booking system was part of the strategy to deal with the bots. It's made it appear to the public, and certainly a Radio 4 producer this evening asked me if this was the case, so they drew that inference from it. It's making people in the mind of the public align the bots with driving instructors. And the producer at Radio 4 said, because it was driving instructors, wasn't it offering these bots? And I was like, no, it was black market profiteers. They might have been having bots crawl the DVSA website as much as they were trying to get Oasis tickets and resell them. These are people who specialise in deploying these bots, and that is not driving instructors. There's a very tiny percentage that might have been engaged in some nefarious activity, but the majority would not risk their licence and their livelihood for a quick buck. But unfortunately, DVSA's own communications have allowed that connection, erroneous as it is, to exist now in some members of the public's eyes, have they not?
So I think that look, this affects two groups of people mainly. It affects the public, the people learning to drive, and it affects driving instructors. And I think that these changes are, they might improve stuff for learner drivers. We don't know, and we won't know that until 2027 potentially. But we know it's going to impact driving instructors, or at least some of us, those that book tests for instructors. But also, as you're just saying, the perception of driving instructors. I think we've all seen it. That there is a stereotype around driving instructors anyway. We can't hide from that stereotype. And it's just being made worse, I think, by this. Now, I'm not necessarily completely against this decision because I can see some of the merits behind it. And hopefully, if they go through with it, because who knows, we've seen a lot of backtracking and stuff anyway, but if they go through with it, hopefully it will have a positive impact. But you're right, it does cast, especially with the way it's been put across over the past year or so, negative aspirations against driving instructors.
Emma, what's your view on that side of things?
I mean, even today, thinking about this public perception, one of my learners today who's got a test booked for March, closest one we can get, has said, can you get me a test? I'll pay. The perception is that we've got some sort of back way in, that we've got some sort of power that's different to what they've got, and we're fighting against them same bots that they are, that trying to get this system moving. I'm of the my fleeting thought, because it is a fleeting thought at this moment because of the day that I've had before I've got here, I've literally glossed over like the announcements today. But looking at it on the paper, my first reaction was, oh, another announcement that it's probably not going to happen. That was my first. That's when my brain went first, and I'm like, I'm not even going to necessarily worry about this. I'll keep up to date with it and look at the changes, but I'm certainly not going to start thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to book my pupils' tests yet, because until I see something of value happening, I'm like, why get myself stressed out? I've got enough on my plate, like without it. So, and I think, you know, I've had a very brief look on social media, and the stuff that I've seen on social media is the stuff that I would call typical of,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, yesterday I literally seen a comment about Love Day, like ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, this is the stuff that we're getting. You know,
Yeah.
this is the perception that we're getting, this is the comments that people are making, and we're in it. This is our day to day. We live
Mhm.
this day to day. We're in it. We're working in it. This is our working life that we're fighting against. It is hard work. If you're working, especially if you're working as a full-time ADI, it's hard work, like to manage that and maintain it and almost guess when your pupil's going to be ready for a test. And then there's disappointment of having to tell them when it's closer that they're not ready for it and that they're going to have to move it. You know, I hate having to do that. It's the worst part of my job, and I've done this job for a long time. And you know, but at the same time, we're very insular because
Mm.
we're in it, we're living in it. It's our environment. It's affecting us. It's impacting us. But when I look at the likes of Heidi Alexander making that announcement today, we're probably less than 10% or even less than that, 5% of her workload.
Mm.
Such a small percentage that it's an announcement for me. It's an announcement of, we'll say this stuff, it'll keep them at bay and keep them quiet for a little bit, why I deal with the rest of this stuff over here.
Yeah.
Because even the DVSA doesn't deal with just us. Never mind the Department of Transport, you know, even the DVSA doesn't deal with just us.
Yeah.
So there's my perception is I need to see it change. I need to see something, not just hear it, because I've seen and heard too much
Yeah.
for me to be buying into it yet.
Can I
And
test?
then
I'm sorry.
the other side of it is I certainly wouldn't like to be stepping into Loveday's shoes. My hat's
Yeah.
off to whoever does.
It is a poison chalice to take on. But actually, I mean, it's interesting you say that about, and that's good actual statistical context about how important are driving instructors to Heidi Alexander. However, I know because I have a bit more interaction with Department for Transport than most people in the industry because we work on projects for young drivers with them, and they often also ring me and say, "What are you going to say about this?" They don't say big mouth, but that's the subtext there because they know I'm a bit of I can be a good ally in PR terms for DVSA and DFT, but I can also be somebody who can turn on them if I don't think what they're doing is good for the industry or good for learners. And actually, what the chat that's been coming out of DFT is this is one of their biggest concerns because they're getting the biggest flack for it from mums and dads. And whilst you guys, as registered regulated professionals, are a small population, your customers aren't a small population. And journalists are very interested in this topic. And, so, you know, because they're getting a lot of consumer push to, you know, so we've been told a number of times that this is actually one of the biggest headaches that the minister has had. And that's why they were looking to enact solutions. So it's not surprising that one of the solutions was the current DVSA chief executive has to go because that's a common PR job. Is like, let's get a change of leadership that'll make them think we're doing something. And you know, and then it's like, let's launch another raft of plans where I think our confidence and our cynicism is there because the other plans that we've had didn't have an impact. So the 7-point plan comes out in December 2024, and by April, May, nearly 6 months later, waiting times have gone up to 24 weeks. So, you know, that's where our cynicism is coming from, isn't it?
Can I go to some of the questions and then
Yes,
come back?
do.
Because otherwise there's going to be so many questions
We
that
won't get to them.
we know. So I'll go backwards.
And then we'll go to you, Gary, because I can see you've got your hand
Okay.
up after that.
Why DVSA not hiring required number of examiners? Well, they did try. The only difference, I believe, was an increase of 40 overall. If I'm, you know, after hiring 400, the actual factual increase was 40.
But
Yeah, so they've had a lot of dropouts. What happens is they've had
Really?
19 recruitment campaigns thus far, and of that 19 recruitment campaigns, they've netted nearly what would be their target, 400 in terms of people that they can start on the training. The problem is people are falling out of the training because they don't like a big 6-week training program. They didn't think it was going to involve all of that, and there's some of the people are the same people who were, you know, applying for jobs as Tesco van driver, you know, and think that's going to be an easier job with less training involved in it. So yeah, the retention on the training program is very poor. And one of the other issues that was highlighted in the Transport Select Committee last December was, can you pay examiners more? Because not only have you got a retention problem with the people in the training process, you've also got the leakage of up to 12% of their
That was virtually turned down today, wasn't it? Because they've got no interest in increasing the price of the driving test because of the burden. I mean, it makes no sense because of the burden on the person paying for it, who's willing to pay up to 300 quid for one.
But they got permission to put the price up.
Oh, I know.
They got everything done, and then it was, well, we haven't put it up enough. We need to put it up more. So go back and start again.
Yeah.
And then that's all gone really quiet. And I think most ADIs have said, yeah, put the price up. If people are paying 250 to 400 quid for a test anyway,
another £2.50 ain't going to make any difference.
No, and it was pennies.
It also could help control demand. If the people that think it's too expensive, they're not necessarily going to want the test then. I think most people will actually pay it if it's going to be. And we've talked for years about the theory test price needs to go up because it's just too throwaway an item, in terms of its pricing. So people have too many goes at it. And are we now going to see that, with pupils being able to book their test, are we going to see that the driving test is going to be, I know they've always been able to book their test, but with pupils fully in control of this process and no gatekeeping allowed now by the regulated professional that you now ludicrously in a way have this regulated system to create, but then you don't give them any mandate to do their job in many ways. Are we now going to see that, there's too many people going into the system and booking tests when they feel like it, when they can get availability, I know, but will we see things like failures to appear, increasing? Because, it is going to become too throwaway an item. The bots aren't going to be able to sell them on for £200-300 a time anymore. The price should regulate, therefore, in terms of it goes back to the honest pricing in an honest market. So pupils, will they just, to have that chance, spend that money? Is it going to change that panic buying consumer behaviour that DVSA keep banging on about is one of the biggest problems?
I think they're out of touch, which we all know they're out of touch. There was a question which is, why has nothing been done by the DVSA about no-show tests? I'm not sure how many appointments have been wasted. I think, why is it? I think this person is absolutely right. However, do you think today was really thought through in any shape or form? I think the other thing is with, and what I was thinking about as an ADI, why would I want to give control of my diary to my clients? If I can't, they're going to book anything what comes up, aren't they? They're going to go, forget that I've got a test, ka-ching. Not whether you, the driving instructor, can actually do that test or what time it is. I've got a 7:20 in Crawley. Chris, you'll be fine for that, won't you? I want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do, there's no thinking about the burden on us. How do you manage your diary? Oh, by the way, I was going on holiday. Oh, I can't go on holiday. I've got to learn, and then we've all had this as maybe CPD providers. I can't do your CPD today, Graham. I've got a test. Yeah, I can't let somebody down. It's like, how do you manage the business?
Just answering the phone for the people that are phoning up with a test next week.
Yeah,
where they've been turned away by everyone else, or their instructors said, "No way, you're ready. You need to move it." And the 10-day cancellation is actually giving them twice the amount of weeks to phone twice the amount of instructors. So there's a lot of burden on instructors from just the managing. And instructors are decent people, right? I know we're biased in this room, so but if Carly says yes, then it's all good. So we can move on. So, but we don't like saying no. We want to help. We're in the job to help, and it's mental health for instructors is also going to be affected by all of this as well.
But Chris, Carly, and this will open the door for you. Does this open the door for more illegal instructors to take the tests that we can't do? Carly, this was going to be big this week, but unfortunately, it's been overridden.
Well, they stymied their own PR campaign on fraudulent instructors, haven't they? Because that's chip paper news now, isn't it? What we were doing yesterday with the media. But Yeah, I mean, you could see. I don't think they thought through the possible harm these solutions could create. And whenever you're trying to launch a solution, you should be doing that devil's avocado thing, shouldn't you? About what harm, and that is the most worrying thing about what they've done here. They did no consultation on the decisions they were about to announce with the major stakeholders in the industry. So what normally happens is DVSA behind closed doors, and it does unfortunately sometimes have to happen behind closed doors with a number of representatives because of the sensitivity and be able to craft that message and craft that decision making. They did none of that this time. So the National Association Strategic Partnership met for our regular meeting with DVSA on Monday in Bristol. And the question was asked about the results of the consultation. It's on the agenda ever since that consultation's been running, as well as what's happening with testing. And clearly their team weren't allowed, even if they knew, to say anything at that point. But to then not even warn the stakeholders about the decision making or come back to them and say, look, this is what normally happens in all truth. This is what is going to go out. What do you think is going to be the response? And can you help us craft the communications at least, or timings? None of that even happened. And you could tell the communications team at DVSA were completely on the back foot themselves. You know, they actually said at one point, look, this is not how we would have done it. So I think that's really unfortunate to place that burden on ADIs right now, who are going to have, actually, they're going to have Q&As from their pupils as well to deal with, and their parents on top of your workload, as it were. You don't really have the answers right now. You've just got some very short, government press release about it. And telling, as a communications person by background, I would have briefed my people who are going to be the messengers on the ground of this properly before I launched it to the public. But I think they do things in a very panicked way to look like they're doing something, and they think the public are their biggest, most important market for this news, and never mind the fee-paying approved driving instructor who is a customer of DVSA, although DVSA seems to forget that you are a customer of DVSA.
You open this up by talking about communication, and you just mentioned it there again with the stakeholders. And I'll be honest, the communication from the DVSA today, in particular, has been exactly what I would have expected it to be. That's what we expect, and that's the sad thing. But I think we're talking there about instructors taking on extra workload and taking on tests. And look, I'm a working driving instructor, admittedly part-time, and admittedly I'm on a brief hiatus at the minute. But I've always let my students put their test. And this isn't saying, oh, I can do it like everyone else. That's not the case, but it is doable. And I find it easier, actually, than that. And now that suits me. Not saying it'll suit everyone, but I think that something that we have to consider potentially, with the DIA and representatives of the industry, if you like, is actually helping instructors that don't do that, giving them methods and giving them techniques potentially to introduce this. But again, maybe this is where the poor communication comes in, because one thing I think we've all said is we'll believe it when we see it. Is it actually going to go ahead? So if we now spend a lot of time saying, yes, this is how you can manage your diary, and then in January they go, well, actually, we've got a new transport secretary and we're going to do something else. And speaking of which, we need to be a little bit careful talking about that, because the last time me and Chris did, she left the next day. So we need to be a little bit cautious on that one. But yeah, it's, I think that's something that we need to take, is looking at how we can help instructors that have never done this and offer some advice there and help them manage that workload a bit.
It will be interesting to see, or it would be interesting to know, and we're never going to know because they don't do the consultations, but how many ADIs actually do book tests and how many get their pupils to do it. I'm the same as Terry. I do it. And I get that, I give them, I manage my diary, tell them when I can't do a test, and they book their own tests. As far as I'm concerned, these are young adults and it's their responsibility, and that's how I've always worked. But I have people in my team who they book it. Now, one of the other reasons that I don't, and which is laughable in some ways, is I've been on the ADI register since February 2010. That's when I qualified. And since that day, my OBS hasn't worked. They don't recognise my ADI number. I have tried numerous times to contact them and say, this doesn't work. Yeah. So when a pupil books the test and puts my ADI number in, I don't exist.
Yeah. You're a ghost in the machine.
I'm a ghost in the machine. I'm not there. I don't exist. I shouldn't be here because I'm apparently not qualified ADI. So apart from when my badge is due for renewal, they can always remember me then. But the system, as well as all of the other booking systems, clearly don't work. Yeah. I will hazard a guess I am not the only ADI out of the 40-odd thousand of us that has this issue. Like my OBS doesn't work, can't log on, can't get on it, doesn't recognize me. My pupils put my number in, it's not there, it doesn't exist. So me as an ADI, I'm not having this taken away from me. I've never had it.
Yeah.
I've never had it.
Yeah.
So I've had to work the other way. And I think Terry's got a point in the fact that humans in general don't like change. And this is where I'm putting my counselor and psychotherapy hat on. They don't like change. And, when we get these announcements, we get this big uproar of, and a lot of it boils down to we don't like change. So it's like we want change, but we don't like change either. So, we're being forced into this and we don't really know what that change is going to be about. So that's a bit scary as well, because not only do we not like the change, we also don't like the change if we don't know what it is. So we've got all of this complication going on. We're going to get this uproar of people, but the communication from the DVSA does not help that.
No, it
Because
doesn't.
if we don't know what's going on, it's just going to make it worse.
Can I put a question in here? Well, I've lost it now. They come in too quick. Hang on, I'll go back. I'll find it. Guy made now there are no standards checks. Unscrupulous ADIs will take the risk of letting them have a go for a few extra quid due to no risk of a standards check. Yeah, I mean, look, I know that standard people are making the tips. I hate to say this, aren't necessarily getting a standards check. I know of in a certain area 3 ADIs with a pass rate of less than 20%. Yeah, are not going to get a standards check. That's come from the examiner who will be doing the standards check mouth themselves. Now, I'm not going to repeat who that was and what test centre, blah, 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 because that then throws like scrutiny on all the ADIs in that area. However, we've now got, which is a real problem, I think, because this is not going to change. The priority is now still driving tests, not part 3, part 2s and standards checks, which is extra burden on PDIs who can't get through the system because of the wait. Will that wait continue? It seems to be yes. So where are these new supervising examiners, for want of a better word, coming from if they can't retain the old ones because you can't come in as one? And I just think, we all know, I think, on reflection, that standards in this industry seem to be going downwards overall, due to, and it's not the fault of the PDIs, due just to sheer number of PDIs and poor training within the industry, which is not being monitored. Audits dead in the water, standards checks are virtually dead in the water. Where does this all go? I mean, I'd say bring in Uber. Oh, no, I didn't say that. No.
I mean, it's been a constant refrain in every meeting that I've had, that where the DVSA board descends from the clouds at certain intervals and does these stakeholder meetings where you'll get a very nice person from the board who comes and asks you what you think. And we always say divest, because they're talking about what should the DVSA strategy be, and it should be divest of anything that is non-core. And core for me is just getting Cat B testing to where it should be. I think they should be divesting of other forms of testing, and allowing the industry to be able to qualify the ADIs instead. But they're not even in a position to have the resource to even think about divesting strategies, which is what they really need to do at the moment. And it is a bit like a chicken house at the moment with foxes running around in it. People will tell you in meetings they know what's going on, but then privately tell you that it's just a mess. And if you speak to anybody who's been part of the former training examiners at DVSA, as we have had on Motormouth before, they will tell you of the chaos behind the scenes and the mistakes that are being made, and the reasons that really good people, or the ones that we all recognise were good people at DVSA, are leaving the ship. So some are being made to walk the plank, and some are jumping off and thinking, I'm just going to go somewhere that's a bit better place than what I'm in at the moment.
So is there, with that, I mean, I think for all of us within the industry, how can we look at ourselves and go, what do we need to? I know the DVSA are the governing body, but what? I'll throw this out, Chris, because what do we need to do as ADIs and an industry to help ourselves? What do we need to change from within if we can't change the DVSA?
I think the issue is always that we are held up by this bung in the way, which is that there's this bottleneck in the process where you can't get tests. So in a way, there's benefits there because potentially that's more lessons, and we know that more lessons is more road safety, and we need to keep our eyes on road safety as well as all of these other things because
more lessons.
Yeah, we're all in business. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is blooming frustrating, and frustration causes problems. And when you are frustrated like that, you have to go and see someone like Emma. It is trying to deal with all of those challenges. I think one of the best and most important things, which is not really the answer to your question, but I think it's an important one, is we need to look after ourselves. So we need to make sure that we do that and we don't let these things get on top of us and we don't end up working, 365 days a year, 7 days a week and just, getting burnt out because we've said this is not a today problem. It's going to take a while. Nothing is really going to be changing on our front. I think also what we need to make sure we're doing is communicating effectively with our customers and make sure that we are running a good business in that sense, because if we're going to rely on DVSA communication, today has shown that that's not something we should do. Addressing it that way. And then the other thing I would say is also trying to make sure that we support each other through the fact that because of we've got 1,700 plus in people joining the register each month, and they are being sold a dream that is potentially not possible because
we'll be close to the race to the bottom again. We've been there before in my 30 years. If the DVSA succeed in getting the driving tests down with the influx of new driving instructors into the industry,
we're going to have an
with that price, everyone goes price and not quality.
And that's why I said to them last time we met and discussed the whole PDI scenario. What will happen with that is DVSA will say to us as an industry, we're concerned that we've got this massive influx of PDIs. By the way, and I'm paraphrasing here, by the way, we can't cope with that. We're having to hire people just to deal with applications, which to me, in the 21st century, is utterly ridiculous that the agency who can't resource driving tests with people are hiring people just to deal with PDI applications. That should be in some form digitized, and there should be a better way of vetting the entrance. So actually it kicks out people who are not going to be suitable in any way for the job of being a PDI or aren't going to complete the application process even, so that they shouldn't really have a human being having to touch that part of the process until you've got somebody who's really serious. It's like I had to reapply for my daughter's passport yesterday, and they won't process you as a new passport holder because it means work until you've done everything the right way in the system. It's all done by AI up until that point. Yeah, your photograph's rubbish. You can't have that one where you look beautiful, Carl. You can just look like the one where you look like some kind of terrorist. That's how it works. There isn't a human being that touches that process until you look like you've got all your eggs in the right basket and you're serious about continuing this process. That's what the PDI application process should be, not hiring more human beings there rather than in driver testing. And we're selling them a pony, because we're selling them into an industry where the training for them is not necessarily where it should be. So there's a responsibility of DVSA in gatekeeping for the good of the new entrant, making sure that they get the right training. Because DVSA will also say that to us as a stakeholder group. What do you think we should do about the substandard training? I know what you should do. Make audit have teeth and have a proper mandatory register and a proper mandatory criteria rather than you can volunteer to be part of this register. That doesn't really have any real advantages for you as a trainer. Otherwise, just go up and do what you want, teach what you want, charge what you want, and produce what you want in terms of a PDI. And that is the regulator coming to you and asking you as an industry for solutions on that, but then doing nothing when you push back and say, have a mandatory criteria that is of a higher level for a trainer of ADIs. Yeah, it cannot just be someone who's been an ADI for 5 minutes who now wants to pass on their vast knowledge and experience to PDIs, right? That's not meant to be an age discriminatory thing. That's just about an experience. There's got to be a level of experience and expertise. Have a robust train the trainer qualification there. Yeah, have a proper register that people have to join, but also make it beneficial for people to join it as well. And have a proper program that you can measure these trainers against and the progress of their PDIs. Because where's the real benchmarking that's going on at the moment? Where's the real surveillance and quality assurance that's going on? Hence, I say they need to blooming well divest it to somebody who actually could run that kind of program properly. And they're not running it properly, and it's a massive distraction from their core activities as well at the same time. And then it's even more annoying if you're sitting in a meeting with those people going, well, what do you think we should do about it? And I'm thinking, I can give you loads of ideas, but you're not going to implement them, are you? So we're back to square one with it again.
And that passport cost you twice as much as a driving test.
I've no idea where that passport's coming back. This it's a lottery. It just means I don't have to take my daughter away with me the next time I go on holiday. So there are some benefits to that. She's 15. You'll understand if you're the mother of a 15-year-old girl.
But one of the having a growth mindset industry, which is what we should be as trainers, as coaches, as people who are teaching life skills. If we can have that growth mindset industry, we are more likely to have the new PDIs that are coming in that are buying into it. Because I know some amazing PDIs that ADIs should be watching out for. Because they are coming through better qualified than those experienced ADIs that we're mentioning, because actually it isn't necessarily about the length of time, it's about experience and understanding, and they are investing in themselves and their businesses. And if we can have a bigger industry of good quality information and support that is there, we will be better. It's not going to solve it. We're still going to have those problems. And actually, illegal instructors don't have to do any of the training and pass any of the tests. So, we need to address all of these levels. But if we can show people the amazing industry that exists, we can then hopefully reduce that impact, reduce people cutting costs. Because do you know what? We can't fight down to the bottom quite as much, because the cost of the overheads means that even if you halve your prices, or you probably can't even halve your prices without making a loss. So it need to be pushing in that way to get in front of what we know is going to be coming. There's going to be a bust at some point.
Totally. It's got all the typical characteristics of that demand curve, peaking and then tailing off. And that's the other reason we're selling PDI as a pony. We're nothing against ponies, but we're selling, or a donkey, whatever is or a dog. I've got a dog, so nothing against dogs either. But we are, they are coming into an industry where, the few years into their job, they're going to be fighting for the scraps and having to reduce their pricing as a result of it. And it is a shame because, as you say, Chris, there are some really bright PDIs coming into it, and they've been, as it is a second career traditionally, the benefit of that is those who are coming through now have been in careers where they are more tech savvy and more business savvy than we have perhaps seen entrance to the industry before, because they've been in jobs where they've had to use tech and they've had to have some business knowledge. And so, I'm really impressed by, and also the engagement in wanting to do more than just the bare minimum. PDI is a part of that big growing market for CPD in the sector. And some of them are saying, no, I want to do the bits that are beyond the ADI qualification now, because it'll really help me as I qualify. I want to learn more of the stuff that traditionally was kind of kept in the cupboard for them when they were actually qualified.
The other thing we need to protect those PDIs coming through, I think, is better regulation over the contracts that are being signed, because there's, and we can do that by challenging them as an industry. We can challenge those contracts, because I get someone every week, and I know the DIA get way more than that, getting in touch saying, I need to get out of this. We know that ADI examiners are getting people going to the test going, I'm going to sit in the car park and not go anywhere because I need you to fail me, because I need to get out of my contract.
Yeah, and that's it. What is DVSA doing about rogue ADI traders and rogue franchises? Now, luckily, there was a test case recently where a small franchise was taken to task. A group of lawyers and barristers who wanted to make their name in this space, so they'll do it for vastly reduced fees, did take on a franchise and its contract, and it was found to be an unfair contract. And that's a really important precedence in legal cases for that to have happened. DVSA were completely unaware of that case. I was one to tell them about that. And they should be paying more attention to this kind of thing. That should have come up over their radar like it came off of my radar, because it has, important things for them to consider. I have always said, by the way, you should be working as a regulator to extend your regulatory powers to be able to regulate the directors of driving schools who are not ADIs. And actually, where it's an ADI, you should get them under fit and proper. If they're ripping pupils off and abusing them in any way, if they are an ADI, get them under fit and proper. It's no different doing that to an ADI, PDI pupil than you would act on if it was happening to a 17-year-old learning to drive. So why don't you act on those guys over there as quickly as you do on fit and proper proceedings on your average ADI when it comes to the typical pupil?
But then you don't need to be an ADI to do it.
Yeah.
So you can run a driving school, you can be a trainer without even
about extending your powers to non-ADI directors, the regulation of driving schools, not just approved driving instructor individuals. Because what an ADI can do as well is go, I'm going to give him my badge now, and I can act like a absolute you-know-what, because I don't fear losing the badge part of it. I'm just going to sit here as a director and making the money.
I want to touch back on Graham's question, if I may, because they were asking about what can ADIs do. And I just want to expand on that a little bit, because Chris answered it really well. But I think that we've got these parameters to work in. So the one thing I would suggest ADIs do is the join associations, whichever one that may be, because that's the more people within associations, within NASP, the more power we have to go to the DVSA. They do things like fill in the surveys, because whilst we may get ignored, we've got a little bit more of a leg to stand on if there's 20,000 people replying rather than 5. But also using this opportunity now, while we do have this influx of work, while demand is high, to charge a fair price, to get your business in order, to build that reputation, so that if and when this does come, so that the downturn happens, you're not in that race to the bottom, because you're the one that's got the best or one of the best reputations in your area. You're the one that people want to come to and choose to come to, rather than just scroll on Facebook and find a name and go, oh, I'll go there. This is the time to do it over the next 6 to 9 months, just to make you the go-to instructor in your area, so you do not have that problem.
Yeah, exactly. When we do business development webinars at DIA, we talk, because look, I can't tell you how to be an approved driving instructor, but I can tell you about running a business and developing a business in different markets and different market cycles. And one of the things that we talk to people about is diversification, so you're not quite as reliant on the key markets, and also value add. You can raise your prices, but I, as a parent decision maker, want to know why you're more expensive and what more am I getting. So adding to what you offer pupils is just as important. You can preach all day about the expertise of a driving instructor, and I did that on BBC Breakfast yesterday about what skills and the value of those skills. But if you can add more things to differentiate yourself from the next guy, like online learning, theory test support with the stuff that you can't actually demonstrate in vehicle necessarily very well, and you can include those in your driving lesson, I think people see that as a better value product when there is that more harsh competition occurring in the market.
And I just say, in that interview you did yesterday with the BBC, and this is a common perception, Terry said charge a fair price. The journalist said how expensive driving lessons are.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's why I went back in
I mean, this is the thing. Oh, we have no costs. I mean, how much does a car cost? I mean, it's just a bit, the perception, and then that spreads amongst the general public that we're really expensive and earning loads of money. Just to throw another political in, I mean, is VAT going to come down? Or is VAT going to go up? I mean, if they're talking about VAT could go as low as 39 grand, that was what a suggestion made the other day, which I don't think, I don't know. But if that was 30, that makes most of us VAT registered on turnover. Yeah. That means driving lessons go up by 20%. How does that affect us really if we want to or need to put our prices up in this economy, which is things are becoming more expensive, that if we've just whacked them with a 20% increase and then we only want to put our prices up £1, actually it's £1.20 then, how, you know, this for me, I mean, we won't know. We'll find out on November the 26th. And I don't particularly want to panic people, but it's out there. Yeah. And that's not just us. We're a small cog in small business, but that will make a big difference.
Yeah, it is things to, you know, to really watch what could be the things. You start thinking about what could be the things coming out of the budget now and planning for those. It's the old pestle or pest, you know, the analysis you do of what's coming in front of you and how that's going to impact your business, with pest normally being political, environmental, technological and social, with the pestle being legal and other things as well. And, you know, doing that on a piece of paper is not a bad thing for people to do in their business planning, is looking what could come up that is going to disrupt your business as much as be an opportunity for your business. And, you know, a business plan can be written on one side of a piece of paper, as long as you're writing something that is forward planning for your business and considering the risks, the opportunities, the threats and things like that. And I would have said this is a zeitgeist moment for instructors to be thinking about that and thinking about diversifying their business model, safeguarding, you know, against the risks, such as Graham has said, taxation risks are high in this administration. That's not a political affiliation or comment based on that. It is literally a fact that we're seeing a high taxing, you know, chancellor at the moment, and it's hitting businesses big and small. So I would, you know, take that moment to sit down and look at what are the risks that are coming ahead and what is the opportunity there for you to, you know, make your foundations more robust that you can withstand those risks, and what thereon are the other opportunities for you to differentiate from the competition and win more of the business that is out there, particularly if it starts getting more scarce.
But this goes full circle again to you know, we're talking there about pests, we're talking about SWOT analysis, we're talking about running businesses. How many ADIs have come into this to just teach people to drive? There is absolutely no business acumen there at all. There is no connection to the fact that they are running a business. They're just doing driving lessons. And this comes right back round to that PDI training and trainers and how we're not regulated, because that should all be part of that training. It should just be a basic regulation.
Agree. And I started out in further education, being a marketing director for the biggest further education college in the South. And even back then, and I'm talking 2000, there were vocational courses, BTECs and otherwise, for like things like sports coaching and hairdressing and beauticians courses, and they had business administration and develop elements to those curriculums. So we've not advanced the curriculum for learning to drive, and it's one of the biggest sole trader environments, isn't it, alongside some of those professions that I've just talked about. And the other key thing that's absent for the qualification is safeguarding. So, you know, and people, you know, don't know to worry about that as a member of the public until you tell them that, you know, the risk to the pupil and the instructor. And we deal with it on the complaint side. You know, safeguarding is as much about protecting the instructor as it is the pupils. So yeah, there is a lot that is broken, that we have a broken regulator that cannot cope with one element of its remit. So there is Bob hope of them getting a lot, you know, all those guys who are launching qualifications that they think are going to replace the ADI qualification at the moment. Good luck to you people. I love your optimism. That is not the solution. The solution is about this, a systemic change and a framework change in how we bring people into the sector, how we train them, how we qualify them, and then how we manage their standards subsequently, and encourage development as a solution, not just enforcement, as in removing somebody if they've been a bit naughty. You know, there could be more interventionary training at that stage in development, because we need to allow for the fact that DVSA didn't allow for them to be trained, you know, well in the first place. Yet now you're going to smack them off the register for doing something that they were never trained to really manage effectively anyway.
Can I come to some of the questions in the chat, please, again? Well, it's not in the chat, it's in the Q&A, because that's one, a dig at us, all of us. We can't be surprised the DVSA ignores us when such a small percentage engage with their consultations.
Yeah.
I think we have to put our hands up.
Yeah.
As an industry, we could do better. I know everyone go, well, they won't change their minds, but if we don't air our opinions, no one's going to listen.
Now the stats on this latest consultation, by the way, people. So this latest consultation attracted around about 6,000 ADI responses, and it attracted over 120,000 public responses. And that was the bit that we were asking DVSA to reassure us about the proportionality and the balance of how they would weigh up decision making. As in, you've only got a small minority responding who are the experts in the field of driver education versus the uneducated public to a large degree, and how you're going to balance that. So there is a kick up the bum for the industry that when you get given a chance to give feedback, you've got to take that chance. Because if we had more like 30,000 people responding to surveys, that does start to have significant impacts on things. It still doesn't measure up to 120,000, but one of the things that DVSE does this, and I'll tell you this for nothing, they will say things like, yeah, well, we only got a small response, so if they've had the opportunity to consult, so we've made our decision regardless. That is an attitudinal thing that they come out with in meetings with stakeholders like ourselves. So
another one here.
Do that.
It annoys me that a PDI who qualifies, this is not me personally, I'm reading, who qualifies cannot be officially graded despite the fact that the Part 3 test summary states a grading viz being able to branch out. With the standards checks falling behind, it seems unfair on aspiring PDIs and newly qualified ADIs. Well, I mean, there's ADIs now over 8 years. Yeah. They're not newly qualified even. They've never, and so, you know, if you think about it, there was at one stage muted that we would go up to ADIs would go up to a pass rate of 33 on the standards check, and PDIs would have 31 as their entry, and then they would get a standards check within 6 months to fully qualify. I mean, you know, all these things get muted out, and this is why I think we've got to be careful, because actually things get said a lot, and guess what happens?
I mean, in terms of having our voice, I have written a furious email to Heidi Alexander, Lillian Greenwood, and to the Shadow Transport Secretary to this evening, you know, reflecting that this is just another example of not real, honest, and good engagement with the sector. And this is verbatim what I've said, so don't think I'm just paraphrasing this to make it sound like I've been a bit cheeky, and I have actually been that cheeky. I've actually said that turning up at an expo and glad handing for half an hour, going and speaking to some road safety charities who don't understand what driver education is all about at the coalface, and speaking to a couple of ADIs in your constituency once is not effective engagement with those at the coalface of driver education. So perhaps you'd like to actually have a meeting with the industry and the key representative bodies in which, and speak to those people properly about what decisions should be made for the better, because right now you're actually launching some decisions that could be for the worse. And I don't think you understand that, because you don't understand what happens in this industry and driver education as a whole. You've got to understand that some of the people that they talk to that they think know about driver education are road safety charities like Brake, who actually are a victims charity. They're not a driver training organisation, understand what goes on when you're out there in the car. The very noble aims that they have as a charity, but they're not a driver education charity in that sense of knowledge and understanding. Or PACTs, or, you know, all these organisations that they think those are people that they should speak to. They should in the round, but the reality is, if it's driver training, testing, or licensing, they need to talk to driver training people, and you know, people on the ground as well, not just people like me.
I think it's a very good point. Also, do you think that it's intentional for the DVSA to be dividing with tomorrow? There's they've called a meeting with the driving forum and not the representatives of NASP. So they had
a rocket up their backsides about that tonight, and I'm sorry to anyone here who thinks that they should be before NASP in terms of consultation, but there is a responsibility around communications and managing the expectation of the audience that you're communicating to, and we take that role very seriously at NASP, and we are the largest bodies representing the largest number of people who are set up to be professional organisations to do that job. And what's happening tomorrow is there are, Chris, this is not intended at you in any way, because I would tell you, there are individuals in that meeting tomorrow who do not represent more than a handful of ADIs, and are not representative bodies. They are audit training organisations representing themselves and their commercial business. So the makeup of that forum is wrong in terms of consultation. There are organisations that I would have had in there above these organisations. And also, this is a really tricky, sensitive time for communications. You need people helping you in that communication who know how to communicate sensitively and not just for their own commercial gain. You've also got to manage expectations. People have already been putting out there, don't worry, I'm going to that forum tomorrow, I'm going to go and get you the answers. No, you won't, because DBSA have already said, we're not giving you any more answers in that forum tomorrow. We're asking you how this has gone down. And what we're going to be saying, like a cup of cold sick, that's the feedback. So, don't give out an expectation that you're the hero without a cape for people if you can't perform that function, because you won't be able to get the information. So that's why I actually want us to have a meeting with the ministers and have a proper frank conversation about the communication and the decision-making process, rather than what will be just a listening exercise by DVSA tomorrow. Though I am going to say this, and I am selling my conference. It's nearly full, by the way. If you do want to speak to the DVSA, the biggest event and the last event of the year that ADIs will actually be able to see the DVSA face on is the DIA conference happening in December. 15% off tonight with a special code for people attending this thing that I'll put in the chat in a moment. But Pauline Reeves is going to be attending that. And I said, a bit of background on Pauline. She's ex-DFT. I've worked with Pauline over a number of years at the DFT level. She is a good listener. She is a good person for engaging with people. I would not be falling down dead in shock if she had a bigger role in DBSA going forward, or they'll parachute somebody in who's known as a turnaround person, who knows, but she is coming to the conference. She's their main stakeholder engagement person, and she is a tough talker. She will criticize DBSA internally rather than just tell them what they want to hear or make excuses. So if you do want to be in a forum, which is half an hour on the agenda at the moment, but I suspect it's going to turn into an hour. I'm going to have to reshuffle the whole agenda of this conference now, but I'll do that because it's important. That is the opportunity to come and talk to the DBSA senior management team, and there won't just be Pauline there. She will be coming mob-handed. But I have also invited Heidi Alexander and Lillian Greenwood to actually turn up at something for longer than a few minutes to shake hands with people and listen to what ADIs have actually got to say. Chris, do you want to speak? Because as a last thing, let's hear from somebody in the thing, because you've raised your hand. Did you want to actually say something? Because I'll allow you to talk. You can have one of the last, kind of thoughts in the panel. Can you see us, hear us now? Chris, if you want to speak. If you untag your microphone, Chris. Oh, Chris, did you want to say something? I can see you there now. Can you hear us and we can hear you? If you want to, hi there, Chris. Yeah, I can hear you. What did you want to say? You can have a last thought in this.
Yeah. Do we have any lobbyists in Parliament looking after us? Because we need somebody to be fighting our case in Parliament as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a representative role to speak to DFT and DVSA on a regular basis, and I speak to several MPs in that, and I know there's other people around the table who speak to their local MPs as well. But we could do with a stronger voice as an industry, someone who actually knows what they're talking about, because they spend more time talking to the industry and can make more informed lobbying in Parliament. But certainly there is a job to do to strengthen our lobbying in Parliament at the moment, particularly when you see the disregard that has happened in the last 24 hours, in the communications alone, never mind the decision making. But it's a good point to raise that we need more representation in Parliament on this score.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So if there's no more people who want to talk on this session as a last word, I think it's time to wrap up now. Graham and co, is there any questions or comments or views that you think we haven't expressed or answered yet?
I'm just still chuckling at you. Go down like a cup of cold sick remark. That's going to stick with me.
Sorry for anybody who's just contemplating their dinner or has just had it this evening. It's been a long day, so I'm not always quite as polite and diplomatic as I should be. But I'm also annoyed today, quite frankly. I'm very annoyed, as you can probably tell. So I'm being a little bit more frank than usual.
It's only Wednesday. We've still got another 2 days to go.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't put this announcement on a Friday. That's normally a trick, making you work over the weekend when it comes to dealing with the comms fall out of this. Chris, any last thoughts from you before we switch off?
I was just glad they did it on the first occasion. It's not when I've been on holiday, and ended up with having to spending my last days of holiday typing out announcements and keeping people informed that way. So I appreciate that. If we're going to, share something, we appreciate the fact it is a Wednesday, not a Friday, as you say, and I was actually working, is nice.
And Emma, any last thoughts from you?
No, I think I'm attributing my incoming migraine to the DVSA, I think. And it won't be the first, and I'm sure it won't be the last.
Well, thank you for attending. After I know you've had a busy day working as well, so you've had to come up with some thoughts of this on top of having to deal with PDIs and pupils all day. Terry, any last thoughts from you?
Well, just one little final thing to mention, because you touched on it before, Cal. Actually, you mentioned about like the qualifications in the industry and stuff like that, and I think this is the time. I kind of touched on it before. This is the time for ADIs to go out and do this stuff. Chris's favorite phrase of DVSA is minimum standards. That they're not doing a great job at anything right now, if we're being honest, when it comes to what we're doing. So you can go out there, and this is a perfect opportunity to go out and be better than what the DVSA have to offer, whether that's CPD or qualifications or just looking at your business or whatever it is. I think this is a perfect opportunity to do it. I really do.
Yeah, brilliant. And Graham, last thoughts from you?
Hang on, I'm just into the chat. What I would like to say, actually,
you're not normally shy at coming forward.
No, I was trying to do the. I'm a bloke. I can't do two things at once. Okay, I was reading. I can't listen and read. I think for me, it's like I always look at these things as an opportunity. What opportunities can when you look at this? How do I need to change my business model if I'm an ADI to get on with this and make it better for me, rather than just going, oh, this is all a disaster. How can I, because that's what I've spent 30 years in this industry doing, is going, actually, this could be an opportunity. What can I do that will make this better? Yeah, for myself, my business, and the ADI community. I think this discount doesn't work. I've tried today as well. Please assist. What discount are we giving away?
It's 15% on the conference tickets tonight, using that code that I just put in the chat. Jawad, you might have been a bit early to the discount being opened up on the ticket sales, so maybe go and try that later. If not, if you email us tomorrow on the help@driving.org, we will, and say you're on this event tonight, we will make sure that you get the 15% discount.
Okay, so with that, hey, look, everyone got a bargain, 15% off.
There we go. But again, it's not meant to be a sales pitch just to sell tickets. It is actually just about that piece about, it's the last opportunity of 2025 to actually speak to the DVSA in person, particularly when there's going to be a potential new leader there. And there's going to be some forming and norming of their opinions about how they'll lead it going forward as well. All that remains for me is to say thank you very much to Emma, Chris and Graham and Terry for coming tonight, and thank you to all of you for coming and helping us all digest the latest news that we've got today. We'll keep you up to date as much as we can do. Oh, Richard wants to say something. Should we let Richard have a last word?
Last word.
Go on, Richard. If you can unmute yourself and speak quickly, I will let you have the last word if you want to have it, other than me saying goodbye to everybody. I've unmuted you, Richard, so you're okay to talk if you want to chat, but you just need to unmute your own microphone. Anyway, if you interrupt me, Richard, as I say, go, oh, there you go. Hey, Richard, how are you? Did you want to say anything to us, Richard? Okay, stick it in the chat if you can't make the system work in terms of the thing, or let me know if there's a problem accessing it before, and we'll try and resolve it for the next webinar. But yeah, again, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. Sorry if I put any of you off your subsequent dinners with my comment about just try and forget about it. I won't even repeat it again. But you all know what I mean in terms of how this announcement has gone down. And hopefully we will try and engineer some engagement with those ministers that will be a little bit more productive than what we've had today. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everybody, and thank you so much for your input tonight. Keep letting us know, by the way, on socials, via whoever you interact with the most in the industry, to get that message to us, or you can email Carly Brookfield at driving.org or help and support at driving.org. Let me know what you think, because as I am that Motormouth in that room alongside colleagues like Graham, with DBSA and with ministers and with other stakeholders, I really want to be saying what's in your head, not necessarily what's in my head. So thank you, and thank you to the panelists again. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Bye.